Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wade Appleby. I am one of the sales engineers here at WatchGuard, and I am joined by Gary Ding, one of my colleagues. I'll give him a second to introduce himself, and then we are going to be talking about ThreatSync Core today, our XDR solution. So, Gary, if you want to say hi real quick, and we'll get right into it.
Hey everyone.
Awesome. Gary is going to be on to help answer any questions during the Q&A portion. Please feel free to put any questions as we're going through the deck in the chat. He's going to be monitoring that. And then at the end, we'll also have time for some Q&A as well. So as I mentioned, we are talking about our XDR solution or extended detection response solution called ThreatSync Core and how you're going to be able to power up your security with it. So of course, just some preliminary note keeping and agenda information. Obviously, if you have connected in, you can audio connect in via computer or dial in. We have that Q&A box, and the webinar will be recorded and shared on demand. And there is a polling question as well as the post-webinar survey, and you'll be entered to win a $25 Visa gift card, and those winners will be notified via email, and there will be 2. So, as part of our agenda, we're going to talk about what is ThreatSync Core, the platform alerting and remediation capabilities within it, how to actually enable ThreatSync Core, and then what are the responses that are available to you as an administrator within the platform, both from an automated and manual perspective. So, what is ThreatSync Core? Now, with ThreatSync Core, it is, again, like I mentioned, our XDR solution for all of our products. So the telemetry that feeds in from our firewalls, the telemetry coming from our access points, from our identity, from our endpoint security, as well as very shortly our network detection response and our SaaS detection response all feed into ThreatSync Core so that if you live within the WatchGuard ecosystem and you have all of our products, and you have the higher level licensing. So for example, with a Firebox Total Security Suite, the APs, the USP licensing, and so on and so forth, you are going to be able to feed that telemetry directly in so that we can correlate and look for threats that will allow you to remediate to them either through a manual process on your own or through an automated process within ThreatSync Core remediation policies. So, whole question right off the bat. Are any of you using WatchGuard ThreatSync today? And as you can see, it's multiple choice, no wrong answers. There might be a wrong answer. It might be A. We'll give it another 30 seconds on that, and then we'll keep moving through. We're about 80% voted, and we'll give it 10 more seconds, and we'll move on to the next section. Awesome. Thank you, Gary, for closing that poll. So just to go over the results of that real quick before I go into all the different parts of ThreatSync Core. So currently, among the poll, a good chunk of you had said no, which is completely okay. Again, this is something that is not on by default. And to be able to utilize it, you do have to have one of our higher level security licenses on our products. And again, just to reiterate, Total Security Suite on the Firebox, the USP licensing for our APs, Total Identity Security for the identity piece, EDR or above for our endpoint. And then, of course, as you can see right here on this screen, you can see NDR and SaaSDR are automatically included within ThreatSync Core. So with ThreatSync Core, it is, of course, part of our unified security platform within WatchGuard Cloud. WatchGuard Cloud provides that centralized management layer, giving you a single pane of glass for the administration, automation, visibility, and deep advanced reporting functionalities across all of our different products, from the firewalls to the APs to identity to endpoint. Now, with ThreatSync Core, we also have ThreatSync Plus, and you can see that right here. ThreatSync Core is the extended detection response, or XDR. ThreatSync Plus are the additional pieces that you can add on, like NDR and SaaSDR, that will also then feed into ThreatSync Core. So again, just to keep it as clear as possible, ThreatSync Core is our XDR. ThreatSync Plus are the additional detection and remediation pieces for the network as well as SaaS products. And again, as you can see, all of our products are integrated into this, from our network security to our identity security to our endpoint security, as well as cloud security with that SaaSDR piece. We have hundreds of out-of-the-box integrations and direct access to our APIs for quick and easy customization, so you can easily ingest and work with our products while using your existing products. We provide MDR services that you can layer on top of these. And of course, for our partners, we have our FlexPay consumption subscription and term-based procurement options so that we can make sure that your business is as agile and as flexible as possible. So with ThreatSync Core, you have the alerting and remediation capabilities. And with the visibility that we're able to provide, we're going to have a very simplified pane of glass for all threat data coming from the firewall, APs, endpoints, and so on. So this gives you unified threat visibility. We're going to combine those detections from all those security devices. You do not need to switch between consoles. It's all within the monitoring section as well as the configuration section of ThreatSync Core. And those detections are going to provide context for faster threat response, which means increased efficiency and reducing security risks as well as reducing the surface attack area. And with the unified threat detection, we're correlating all of this across the security layers seamlessly. So if you have a firebox today and you decide to add our endpoint, you're going to be able to correlate what is coming across the firewall as well as what is coming across the endpoint, so that if it is a targeted attack that is coming from external and into your environment, you're going to be able to see not just what's happening on the endpoint that was compromised, but also on your network as well. We're going to be looking for indicators of compromise for malicious scenario identification, and we want to reduce that mean time to detection and remediation. The information that's going to be available will show you the impact, severity, and the scope extremely quickly. And you can see this on the right-hand side. So as an example, at the top, we can see what is scored as a 10 out of 10. It's a malware APT. It was detected by the firebox, and then we can see it happening on the endpoint as well. So in this case, we are able to remediate either manually by going ahead and isolating the endpoint or potentially blocking that IP if I want to go into the firebox itself. However, with ThreatSync Core, you can automatically remediate that. So you can see that device isolation is in progress and the IP was blocked because this involved not just the firebox, but also an endpoint. So through the correlation, we were able to then build a remediation policy that says, yes, I want to block the threat origin IP and then isolate the endpoint that was impacted based upon the severity or the risk score that we associate with it. Now, this is going to provide streamlined security and remediation through ThreatSync Core. You're going to be able to orchestrate how you want to manually respond and then build those automated response policies as I mentioned earlier. So within the remediation, it's going to integrate the alerts from all of our products. It's going to generate incident context so that you can prioritize efficiently which ones you need to care about. We're going to provide cohesive, comprehensive security posture and recommendations on what to do. And then this will streamline the response for a much faster threat mitigation, as well as allow you to automate that threat response process. This reduces that mean time to respond and remediate and clears up the obstacles that can slow down a security team. So you can see over here on the right-hand side, among these incidents, I can see things relating to identity, like credential access. And in this case, you can see the user disabled push notifications. I can see a malicious access point evil twin has been detected by one of our APs. And then down towards the bottom, I can see advanced security policies for our endpoint product is detecting unknown scripts, as well as an indicator of attack that was stopping a specific service. In this case, syswow64net.exe, which is built into Windows. So within here, I can drill down into the incident details. And as you can see, this one is based upon the advanced security policy of the unknown scripts. I can see the account that it applies to. So if I'm a partner, I'm going to be able to easily identify what account is being impacted, when the date occurred, and then I can see the threat details. So again, it's a violation of the advanced security policies. And within the advanced security policies, we're looking for things like PowerShell usage with obfuscated parameters, unknown scripts, locally compiled programs, and macros embedded within documents. And so we give a description of what it is, that the script was detected because it hasn't been classified by WatchGuard. So it's an unknown script that our zero trust application service within our endpoint solution hasn't identified as either goodware or badware. And so in this case, the recommendation is to isolate the computer. Now, as you could see, I could easily isolate the computer manually as soon as I see that incident detail. However, down at the bottom, you can see those remediation policies and the ones that are turned on. So I can see that if it's scored between a 7 or 10, there is a perform delete file if there's a malicious file involved. There's an isolate device, there's a block threat origin IP, and then as well as the ability to auto archive any low scoring threats that are detected, because a good chunk of these are going to be obviously picked up by the default protection, depending upon what solution we're talking about, if it's the firewall, if it's the endpoint security, if it's the APs. And when those types of threats have been automatically handled, you don't need to have that type of information occupying your dashboard. You want to see what you need to respond to, either from a manual remediation or by building that automatic remediation. So how do you enable ThreatSync Core? It's actually a very, very simple process. It's part of the platform. There's no extra SKU involved, like I mentioned. The requirement is more products equals more protection. So you'll have access to it within WatchGuard Cloud as an owner administrator. It's just a matter of having that higher level security licensing on those devices or on the software. So the Firebox with Total Security Suite, access points with USP, total identity security, EDR or above on the endpoint. And then to be able to enable it, all we need to do is go into WatchGuard Cloud, go up to configure, click on ThreatSync, and then click on device settings. Now, within there, we will be able to enable ThreatSync, and based upon if it's a device or if it's software. So if it's the endpoints or identity, it's a simple toggle. If it is a device, of course, not every environment might be fully protected with Total Security Suite. You might have a mix of fireboxes that have Total Security Suite and Basic Security Suite, as well as access points that have a mix of the standard licensing as well as the USP licensing. You'll be able to choose which ones are ingested into ThreatSync Core. And again, so this is going to make it easy to add or remove devices according to the requirement. And then as soon as you turn it on, it will immediately begin correlating and scoring threats within your environment. And I'll be able to go into that monitoring threat section to be able to see those within a matter of a couple hours. And then from there, typically you're going to want to enable notification rules as well as reporting, which is all handled from the administration tab. Now, down here at the bottom, we have that quick start link. I believe Emily also pasted it in the chat, so please feel free to take a look at that. And if you have any questions as we keep going through the presentation, again, please feel free to throw those into chat as well. So enabling ThreatSync Core, pretty straightforward. What about responsive action through automated policies within ThreatSync Core? It is also very straightforward and simple to set up. We have default policies that you can enable that allow you to get an idea of how you should respond to threats. And again, we also have extensive documentation on the way to build those automated remediation policies. But of course, every environment is going to be different. You might want to respond manually to certain types of threats that others might want to have an automatic response on. So with that automation, you can enable those ThreatSync automation policies, the default policies, as I mentioned, and then you can then use those as a base. And of course, that's when you start adding additional policies when required. And those remediation policies, the actions will change based upon the device type that is selected. So as an example, I can isolate endpoints because they have the endpoint agent on them. I can't isolate a firebox, I can't isolate an access point, but I can perform other functions on them. So that will change based upon the type of resource, be it a firewall, AP, endpoint, identity, or NDR, SASDR. The response actions will be specific according to each of those different solutions. And then you check your policy order because it's going to be based upon order of preference. You might have certain policies that if they don't apply, you specifically want it to go to the next policy and then take additional further action. And then with the amount of detail that is available within ThreatSync Core, you will then also be able to have a manual response when necessary. Again, like I mentioned, every environment is going to be different. You might not want to have an automated policy that could take a critical asset like an application server or database server offline. So With that, I wanted to open it up to questions, and I can also, if we have time, I can hop into WatchGuard Cloud so you can see what that process looks like. But Gary, how are we doing? Any specific questions on the core functionality of how ThreatSync works, how to enable it, how to build those automation policies? Throw them at me.
Yeah, so we have a few here. So the first question is, well, we've got a pretty lean IT team. How much hands-on work does ThreatSync actually require day to day?
Yeah, absolutely. So with a pretty lean IT team, that's exactly what ThreatSync Core is focused on. It's a designed to reduce the noise and the amount of alerts that you're used to seeing on a daily basis. We want to give you actionable insights without needing constant tuning or full-time threat hunters. You'll get those prioritized alerts, easy to use investigation tools, and then that automated remediation that you're able to build, as well as clear guidance, all from a single universal dashboard.
Hmm. Thanks, Wade. Another question. We already have WatchGuard firewalls and endpoint protection. What's the value add of turning on ThreatSync?
Absolutely. So that's exactly where ThreatSync shines. If you're already using our firewalls and endpoint agents, ThreatSync Core is going to turn it into a team. It's going to be able to correlate the information across both of those solutions, what's going across the firewall, what's coming across the endpoint, and flag suspicious patterns early and give you one place to respond. It's like going from, two good security tools to one smart coordinated system. And a perfect example of what this looks like, especially for our endpoint customers. If you have EDR or above, our threat hunting service is included by default. And if you've ever looked at the indicator of attack dashboard and actually drill down into one of them, we don't automatically block on IOAs. We provide recommendations on remediation, which could consist of something like isolate, deleting a file, stopping a process. And so that is a manual aspect. With ThreatSync Core, you can now automate it so that if there is an indicator of attack detected, instead of having to go investigate it yourself and see exactly what it says, you can have an automation policy within ThreatSync Core that says an indicator of attack has been detected. They are trying to dump LSAS credentials using PowerShell or proc dump, and the recommendation is to isolate the endpoint. All right, our automation policy will automatically isolate the endpoint because that IOA is scored as a 10 out of 10. So that just shows, obviously, if you have the firewall and the endpoint, we're going to be able to correlate it. But even if you have a single solution, ThreatSync Core is going to provide additional functionality that is just not available within the base solutions.
Okay. And just one final question, and this might actually lead you into, taking a look into the dashboard a bit and, showing how things work, if that's all right with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so a question here is, I have only the locally managed WatchGuard as well as endpoint licenses. How do I set up ThreatSync?
Yeah, that is actually very easy. So on the endpoint side, it's as simple, and let me actually go into WatchGuard Cloud so you can see exactly what it looks like. So for the endpoints, super easy. I'm going to go into my home environment. Now, I have a partner level account, so just give me just a second. I have to go into my actual subscriber account so I can get into the configuration of ThreatSync. So let's go into my home lab. And then from here, obviously at the top, I have monitor and configure. So if I click on monitor threats, that's going to bring me to the actual threat section if I already have ThreatSync configured. If there's nothing configured, it's going to be pretty much blank. So I need to go to configure ThreatSync. Now, within here, you're going to have a couple different sections: the automation policies, the device settings, the blocked items, and then trusted access points. So device settings, this is where I enable it. So Carlos, your question around for specifically endpoints, as you can see, it's as simple as turning on the toggle for anything software based. So endpoint, off point, and then our SASDR and NDR, it's going to be a simple toggle. For the devices, this is going to be a little bit different. As you mentioned, you're doing local management. Now, it does not matter if you're using the web UI or if you're using the system manager, as long as you connect the Firebox to WatchGuard Cloud for visibility and reporting, which you absolutely can do since you have a locally managed Firebox, and you'll still manage it the exact same way. As soon as you do that, it will show up within the list. And a perfect example, my M390 right here, this is a locally managed firebox that is connected for visibility and reporting. And you can identify it because the little WatchGuard fire logo is not lit up, but my T45 is. So my T45 is a cloud managed and connected for cloud visibility. So again, it does not matter if you have a locally managed firebox, you can still connect it to WatchGuard Cloud for visibility and reporting. And it's a very simple process to add that. All I need to do is when I initially log in, if you've never added a device to WatchGuard Cloud, it'll give you a list of those devices and you can go add them in. Otherwise, if you have, like, let's say an AP, I can come in here, go to add device, and then I pick it from the list because you'll be able to see your serial numbers. And then you just follow the instructions. It'll tell you to go into either the web UI or into System Manager and enable the checkbox for WatchGuard Cloud. And then once you do that, it will immediately sync and be connected for that visibility and reporting. And then you'll be able to utilize all of the functionality from ThreatSync to the integrations with AuthPoint to the APs to NDR and SASDR as well. And Carlos, I did see your question about if I could repeat it again, please. The recording is available. I know Gary had answered that, but just on the endpoint side of things, you already have the existing endpoint solution, either EDR, EPDR, or advanced EPDR. When you log into WatchGuard Cloud and go to configure ThreatSync and click on device settings, you'll just have to hit the toggle for endpoints, and that's it, nothing else. Now, with that, I'm going to give another minute or two for any other questions that might be coming in, but I just wanted to go into the monitoring section so you could get an idea of what it looks like. Now, my home lab environment is going to be a little bit basic just because, I'm not getting hit with malware. I'm not going to fishy websites or anything like that. But if I set this to, let's say, the last 2 weeks, within here, I can see the amount of incidents. Now, the vast majority of incidents have been scored as low. Now I can go into the pending incidents and go into here. And so currently my filter is set to status new and if I've read them. So as you can see, advanced security policies, malicious URLs. So I have advanced EPDR for my endpoint licensing. So I have the advanced security policies piece. And this was some testing I was doing with some Python scripts. You can see the Python script policy test. So I was trying to generate the telemetry needed to show within ThreatSync core. And then things like the malicious URL web blocker categories. So again, this is something that is automatically blocked by the Firebox because of the web content filtering. It's been scored as a 1. And I can see that coming through that the connection was blocked. Now, if I want to drill down into it, again, I can go into the incident details and see all the information within here. So I can see the threat details, I can see the malicious URL itself, and then I can drill down into the individual details as well as the network connection details. And then if I want to block this IP directly from within here, I can do that. So I see that destination IP and I can say, you know what, I want to block this IP on all of my eligible fireboxes. If it's something like an endpoint, that's where that isolate functionality will show up right here if it says that the recommendation is to isolate it. And you'll also be able to see all of your endpoints and where you stand from a risk level across all of them. So my dad's desktop and my desktop are scored as a 5. That is because I have it within hardening mode, so its risk level is a little bit higher. They should be within lock mode, which is just one of the behavioral modes of our endpoint solution. And I can see the incidents over a timeline period. So I can see that, yep, there was an advanced security policy, 9 malicious URL ones, another one, when was it first, when was it last seen? And then from here, I can isolate them. I can kill processes, I can delete or restore files, and then if you have advanced EPDR, I can also remote into the machine directly from within the console. So with that, I wanted to see, Gary, did we have any other questions in the chat?
Yeah, I mean, there's one. If you can elaborate on how maybe NDR and SaaS would interact with ThreatSync core, or how the remediation works on that today.
Yeah, absolutely. So the remediation specifically on the SaaS side of things, that's actually currently within beta at the moment. And so this will allow us to look into Azure workloads. So you can see right here, ThreatSync Plus with NDR. We're going to be able to monitor those NDR or those workloads within Azure. And then within the SaaS piece, we will actually be able to block those users within Office 365. So if that user gets compromised and they're trying to access Azure workloads or they're trying to escalate privileges within Office 365 or do something like take private files and sharing them externally, potentially to another threat actor, those are the types of things you're going to be able to block with that block user functionality, which is going to be releasing very, very shortly.
Yeah, thanks for that, Wade. There aren't any other questions. So yeah, looks like we're good there.
Awesome. Well, with that, I think we can consider that a wrap. Like I mentioned just a couple minutes ago, this has been recorded. So if anyone missed any part of it, please feel free to go back and look through it. We are, of course, always available for questions. Gary and I, this is what we like to do. We want to make sure that you guys feel knowledgeable and comfortable within our solutions and within our platform so that you can maximize the security benefits that ThreatSync Core, as well as the rest of the platform, are able to provide. So with that, again, I'd like to thank everyone for taking some time today to join us to talk about ThreatSync Core. And hopefully for those that have not turned it on yet, but have access to it, you can now just easily go ahead and turn that on for the correlation and start playing around with it to build those remediation policies. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day and enjoy your week.